Every year across Scotland, around 65,000 reports of domestic abuse are made to the police.
This is police here. What is your emergency?
That's 1 every 8 minutes.
I just thought he was going to end my life that night.
Incidents have grown to record numbers.
It's a crisis, and it's been a crisis for a very long time.
I wanted to scream that so that somebody could hear me, somebody could come and help.
Most victims will never report their abusive partners.
They have got you down so low that you don't think that you deserve any better.
But those who do find themselves in a system under serious strain.
All these women can do is hope and pray that the law stands up for them.
For more than a year, 7 women have allowed Disclosure to film with them, following their journeys as they try to escape abuse and find justice.
All I want is that they say that he's guilty. I just want to be left alone.
We shared the same interest in cars. That's what really drew us together. He was a HGV driver, as was I at the time. He came across as a big, gentle giant. I thought this was the man that I would spend the rest of my days with.
A year into the relationship with Chris Forrest, things began to change.
I'd managed to get into the career that I'd always wanted to do. And the first day of my course, I came back and the first question he asked me was, how many other women are there? I was the only female in this course. And when I told him, he said, I don't know if I can do this.
From that point, she says the jealousy and violence got worse. Some of the attacks were captured by their home security cameras. They're distressing to watch.
He grabbed me by the throat and he had me on my tiptoes. Threw me from there to the back of the car, which I bounced off of. He walked away and I was lying on the ground in shock. And then he came back and he, with such force, just grabbed me by the throat, pinned me to the ground. The next attack was waiting for me to come home, and he's standing there tense and he's clenching his fists, and it was clear what his intentions were. He knew that he was going for me. My dog was terrified. He was absolutely petrified. He dragged Cooper by the lead up the driveway. Cooper didn't want to go with him. But everything was my fault. Everything was my fault. I could not do anything right. The abuse, it started with him strangling me, and if I cried, he stopped. That quickly stopped being effective. Even if I cried, he didn't stop. But it took for blood to be drawn for him to stop.
As well as having CCTV recordings of abuse, Liz also photographed her injuries over the years with Chris. She documented the aftermath of his violent rages and the times when he'd left her bloodied and bruised.
Just wanted it to stop. Just wanted it to stop. I gathered that footage so that I could show Chris and say, look what you did. My intention was to show him the seriousness of what he was doing, the impact it was having, and the hope that it would change his behaviour.
See, before I punch my windscreen in, take a fucking bite out of it.
I don't want a bite of it though, Chris, I really don't.
Take a fucking bite out of it. You wanted a bite, take a fucking bite.
I really don't.
Take a fucking bite out of it.
Chris.
I'm being fucking serious.
I really don't want one.
fucking thing.
Stop it, please.
You shut the fuck up.
This was a man that was meant to love me. You don't do that to people that you love. You don't make them suffer like that. I gathered that, and I didn't have the guts to show him. I think I was fearful as to what he would do or how he would react to it.
Liz and Chris were together for 3 more years. In 2020, with the violence escalating, she finally reported to the police.
Chris had me under his spell, under his control. And I sat there and I made a post-it note of why I should report him and why I shouldn't. And when I look back at that post-it note, I'm horrified. And that's the truth of the matter. This guy was hurting me on a regular basis, and I felt sorry for him. I was worried about how this would impact his future. And this is a man that didn't care what he was doing to me, what happened to me. I had to clear my head and go through it step by step. And when I did that, I thought, what's this guy done to me? I think it took me a month and a half from the last attack occurring to me eventually phoning the police, to have the courage to do it.
I think it's really, really easy to say, why doesn't she just leave? People stay in abusive relationships because it's too dangerous to leave. They often don't leave not only because they might be afraid, and women are a really good, reliable predictor of risk, but also they can't put food on the table. They can't pay the rent. And so I think it's really important to understand that women don't stay in abusive relationships because they like them. They stay in abusive relationships because we've made it so difficult for them to leave.
In Kelso, in the Scottish borders, police have received a report of domestic abuse spanning almost 30 years. The details are so serious that specialist officers with Police Scotland's Domestic Abuse Unit are investigating. Detective Sergeant Mandy Wilkinson is leading the team.
It's very serious. The emotional, psychological, as well as the physical complexity of what had happened to her over a sustained period of time. It's very harrowing.
The case involves a woman called Carolyn Quinn, who's told police that since 1995, her husband subjected her, and later her son, to years of abuse. The police files say her husband, Kenneth Quinn, started abusing Carolyn when she was heavily pregnant. They detail a catalogue of domestic abuse spanning the length of their marriage. Carolyn also told officers she'd been raped by her husband.
So Carolyn had permanent disfigurement from some of the assaults. Some of the injuries that she had included black eyes, closed over eyes. They would have been visible. The first police officers who spoke with her asked to see underneath the clothing, and her limbs were covered in bruises. She had some scarring to her nose. She had scarring to the top of her head. Carolyn was a nurse, so she'd actually tended to a lot of the injuries herself, but they had left permanent marks.
Detective Sergeant Wilkinson's team submitted their files to the Crown Office, who are now prosecuting the husband. In total, Kenneth Quinn is facing 10 charges, 7 of serious violence and 3 charges of rape. It's now 20 months since Carolyn reported. She's still waiting on a court date. She's agreed to waive her anonymity and be followed by disclosure through her case. Since being charged, Carolyn's husband has been given bail with conditions not to approach her. For her safety, she's now staying in a women's aid refuge in a different part of Scotland.
When I first spoke to victim support and the Procurator Fiscal, they did say that there was a backlog of cases, but I didn't expect it to be this lengthy. In a way, that's a sentence in itself that I've served for 2 years.
Today, she's waiting for news about whether her husband has pleaded guilty or if the case will go to trial.
It's very much back to the stage of the feelings when you're being abused. You lose control of things, and all you're doing is waiting for that phone call.
The hearing was at 9:30 this morning. It's now after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and she's heard nothing.
I'm so nervous, I'm sorry.
Thank you for calling National Inquiry Point. We are currently experiencing a high volume of calls and no operators are available at this time. Please contact the relevant court or high. Please note outcomes from cases calling at court may not be available until the next working day.
Next working day, surely not.
Alternatively, please call back later.
Go on, call back later. Let's go and I'll try again.
All operators are currently dealing with calls. Your call will be answered as soon as possible. Thank you.
37 minutes, nearly 38 minutes. Nearly 38 minutes of your time.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Caroline Quinn speaking.
The trial will be assigned for the 27th of November.
Oh, that's really good news. I take it the accused pled not guilty
Yes.
to all those charges?
Let's have a wee look. Yeah.
Yes, no, thank you very much for that.
All right.
Bye-bye. At least we've got something to work to, which is good. I don't know how somebody can behave like that, could you know?
Listen to me. Get off of me. Listen to me. Listen to me.
You're hurting me. Get off. Just leave. I don't want you here. You're scaring me.
A young woman has been attacked by her boyfriend at her flat in Glasgow.
This is police here. What is your emergency?
Hi. I'm not sure if I phoned the right people, but my ex-boyfriend turned up to my flat. He was in here and he started attacking me, and then I eventually got him outside. And he's been banging the door trying to get back in.
So he'd be hitting you?
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. I can understand you're upset. Okay. Get the office out as soon as I can for you.
I'm sorry.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Bye-bye.
I just thought he was going to end my life that night. I couldn't get out of the flat because my keys were in the living room. He'd broken the door handle off the living room. So yeah, I felt very trapped in that moment and scared.
Lauren was in the relationship for 6 months and it was becoming increasingly abusive.
The first thing that happened wasn't that he got physical with me. I think there was a level of insecurity with him, and he would make comments about me being interested in other people, maybe comments about what I was wearing, who it was for. He would often call me things like a slut and a whore and so forth. And he would often make comments about me being damaged goods and unlovable at times, and those are the specific ones that have stayed with me to this day. And I know now that it's not true, but that's how I was made to feel in that moment, and that's what I believed to be true about myself.
After a Friday night out for dinner together came the worst violence.
It started off with things around the house being broken. mirrors on the wall that he took off and threw in my direction. At one point, he had a knife that ended up in the wall. I ended up with a black eye from him. And I was really scared. The thing that was running through my mind over and over and over was, if I don't make it out of this, I have to show people why. I have to have proof.
Out of sight of her attacker, Lauren put her phone on record and hid it under the bed covers.
I don't want you here. Please leave. You're scaring the shit out of me. I want you gone. I'm going to phone the police. Do you understand? Get off of me. Are you serious? Get off of me. Get off of me. I need you to get out. Stop behind me, please.
Lauren photographed her injuries, which included a bite mark and bruises across her body.
The police arrived pretty soon after I'd phoned, and they could see the state of my house, they could see the state of me. So I decided that I was going to pursue it, that I owed that to myself.
Lauren's partner was charged by police. He faced 5 counts of being violent and abusive. When the case eventually called, Lauren was told she wasn't needed there. It took several days of her phoning the courts before she learned of the outcome.
Found out that he had pled guilty to some charges, but as a first-time offender, he got an admonishment.
He was given a warning by the sheriff not to offend again.
For me, I felt there was really no punishment. Through the justice system, that is. Understandably, I didn't think he was going to get years of jail time, but I did think that the punishment would fit the crime a little bit more.
One in 4 women will experience domestic abuse. In Dundee, police attend more incidents per head of population than anywhere else in the country.
And would you say that you were very frightened of him? Okay.
Operating at the sharp end is an organisation called Assist, who receive police referrals of the highest risk victims in the city. It's the job of the staff here to provide a safety review for them and their families, and to support them as they go through the court process. They've never been busier.
There's lots going on for people who are already kind of dealing with their own trauma. There might be practical needs. There might, some people are homeless off the back of domestic incidents, etc. So each client will get an allocated caseworker so they can kind of build up that relationship with someone. We will try and be that central point of contact to advocate and kind of help navigate through all those processes that come off the back of reporting to police.
Assist workers deal with around 100 referrals every month. 1 in every 7 of their cases involves a child. Today, Brogan Campbell is on her way to support a teenager whose mother has reported her partner to police.
So this young person, she is 17 years old. So she was referred in by my colleague Sammy, who supports her mum. She was witness to an incident between her mum and her mum's partner. So she is quite likely to be cited as a witness. So I will be there to support her with the whole court process and on the day if it does go to trial.
Ahead of court, Brogan has to carry out a risk assessment with the teenager who we are calling Kirsty.
Do you feel like everything that's happened with your mum, do you feel like that's affected you at all?
Yeah.
Yeah? In what way do you think it's impacted
Because
you?
mum's mood depends on how things are at home.
Mm-hmm.
When I see mum upset and frustrated and stuff like that, it does get to me.
Yeah, it must be really difficult.
Yeah.
And you'd be worrying about mum and how she's feeling. Are you okay? want to take a wee break? Yeah. We just take a wee moment. You're doing really well. It's probably hard for him to go through it all. It's okay. Do you feel like it's all hitting you at once? Yeah.
The man facing trial is James Paul Walton, who was in a relationship with Kirsty's mum and who is accused of violence and coercive control.
Let me see who's round about you. Let me see who's round about you. Die. Fucking dress like a slag, you cunt, that's why.
He was always saying it was just words, but the words were horrific in what he was saying. I had no confidence at all. I stopped doing my hair, I stopped doing my makeup. My weight was the big thing that he would always put me down about. One minute he loved my curves, next minute I was a fat bitch, get back to the gym. He would play these mind games. He didn't want a woman on Facebook, any social media, but he was allowed on it. He got me to shut down all my accounts. So it was just a control thing. But then he would always move the goalposts. But yeah, it's definitely given strength now to know that it's not right. Just because he isn't physically abusing me, that doesn't mean to say it's not abuse.
In 2019, new legislation changed how domestic abuse was viewed and prosecuted. For the first time, the Domestic Abuse Scotland Act made a pattern of abusive behaviour and coercive control a crime.
It better reflected the way that women and children actually experience domestic abuse rather than just a physical act of violence. And it completely shifts the focus of prosecution and of evidence from how is she feeling to what did he do? And so it's a focus on the accused behaviors. And that is such a sea change in the criminal justice system.
Ailsa's partner is being prosecuted under this new legislation.
If you don't meet me at some point today, we're done. So fuck off, be lonely, because that's all you ever will be.
Walton will appear in court for the first hearing next week.
He's not pleading guilty. I know he's not pleading guilty. It would be much better for me if he did. But he doesn't want that. He wants to put me through court. He's going to be controlling right up to the last minute. There's no way he's pleading guilty.
Over 4 years, Liz Shanks suffered domestic abuse at the hands of her partner, Chris Forrest. Home security outside their house captured some of his violence. Inside, a pet camera also recorded what was happening behind closed doors.
Sit down, have a conversation. Charles, come on.
I felt really unsafe, and I felt that he was going to either hurt me severely or that he wouldn't know when to stop. And the last 2 or 3 attacks, I really felt fearful for my life, really fearful for my life.
Problem. You fucking tell me. You fucking talk to Dorothy or any kind of hit me.
The attacks escalated until the most serious incident in August 2020.
He snapped, he lost the plot, totally lost the plot, because we were discussing the money that he owed my family. He launched himself off the couch, and I just see him coming, and I thought, there's nothing I can do here.
You fucking, I swear, can 10 grand fucking save your life? Can 10 grand save your fucking life? I see. I don't care going to prison. This is fucking snap me by how you're going to die. I'm a fucking Angie cow.
He grabbed me so hard, I couldn't take a breath. And I'm mouthing to him, pointing at my throat, I can't breathe. And he didn't care. I think he knew that he could have killed me, and I think he was prepared to kill me that day.
Don't start yet. You can't breathe. It's just a panic attack. You can't breathe. It's a panic attack. You can't breathe. I'm trying to help you.
And then he tries to comfort me, and he's pulling me into him. You'll be fine, you'll be okay, and all I wanted to do was get away from him. I just wanted to breathe, and I couldn't breathe. I had emptied my lungs because he strangled me. And no matter how many breaths I took, I wasn't filling my lungs back up. And all I wanted to do was scream. I wanted to scream that so that somebody could hear me, somebody could come and help.
Liz finally contacted the police. Forrest faced 11 charges in total, including causing injury and endangering Liz's life.
So they offered him a plea bargain. I thought that the fiscal would have come to me and said, look, if we drop this and this and this, would you be happy with that? Because I'm the victim in all this. That never happened. He effectively pled guilty to 4 out of 11 charges.
The plea bargain meant there was no trial and none of the footage was shown to the jury. For pleading guilty, he was given a third off his sentence. For the years of sustained violence that Liz suffered, Chris Forrest was given 27 months in jail.
I've lost years of my life that I spent with a man that controlled, manipulated and abused me. I don't get any time back for that. But he's getting time off. He's getting time off for the crimes that he's committed. It's so back to front for me. It doesn't help me. We're victims of domestic abuse.
Chris Forrest served half of his 27-month sentence. He's since been released.
The sentencing in Scotland, I think, is horribly disproportionate and a direct contradiction of what Scotland's officials and politicians say, which is that we take domestic abuse really seriously. What needs to happen is that we have sentencing that is both, proportionate to the offense, but also guarantees at least some level of safety for the victims.
For 2 years, Carolyn has been paying for both the upkeep of her house in the Borders and rent on her Women's Aid flat. But it's costing too much. So she's having to move back to Kelso, back to the area where her husband lives.
It's kind of mixed feelings because of the amount of trauma that happened and violence within the cottage. It's had a lasting effect on me. So I know it's going to be very difficult. My abuser is only 1 town away. He's 11 miles away. Kind of worries me as well. I think part of my journey is that I need to go back to the house. I need to prove to myself that I'm strong enough to do that. I love the countryside, so it's nice going back, but it's also quite traumatic because I've not been here for 1.5 years. And I'm going back to where quite severe violence took place. That's my kind of last memory of the cottage. My goodness, I can't even see. I spent so much time in this garden, it's unbelievable the way it can just grow and take over. It's so strange to be back. It's just as if it's just sat still. It just feels cold and I don't know. So the house has been unlived in for 1.5 years. I think it's just, it feels, you know, neglected just now. I mean, I absolutely love this cottage, but not the memories that are in it. They're quite horrific. That person's faded from in here now, so I don't feel them as if they're here anymore, which is good. The cottage feels quiet and the way it should be. Once I'm back in a day or two, I should get me back to normal again and feel a bit more at home.
Almost 90% of women who experience domestic abuse won't report it to the police. But for some who do, that doesn't bring it to an end. Scots poet Len Penny left her partner in 2020.
Instead of stand your ground, dinna take ony snash, my wains will be crabbit, no in a bad mood.
She has a well-known public persona, but for 3 years, Len Penny was in a relationship that turned violent.
I feared for my life because when he was being physically abusive, I was 6 stone. And there was a time when he had shoved me and I was looking at him from the floor and I said, I'm going to phone the police, I'm going to talk to the police. I'm going to tell the police that you're doing this to me. And he said, do it, the police are going to laugh at you. They're going to laugh at you and they're not going to believe you.
After Len left her partner, Gregor Monson, to escape his physical violence, she started to suffer a different kind of abuse.
I suppose what I wanted to say is that I'm just waiting. I still forgive you. I still would forgive you in a heartbeat. God, I'm fucked up. You fucked me up.
When Len left the relationship, Monson sent hours of pleading voicemails and social media messages at all hours of the night. She called the police, revealing that he'd also been physically abusive to her. Monson was charged with assault and warned to stop contact, but the harassment continued.
When I was posting about events that I was doing, he would express that he was going to it. And it might have been a lie, it might have been the truth, I don't know. But if I post my location, the time and date I'm going to be there, how do I guarantee my safety?
Len was initially told the case would go to trial in April 2022. But 1.5 years later, she's still waiting.
If I don't get a conviction, that will have all been a waste. All of that stress, time, tears, irreparable damage it's done to my health, my mental health, my professional work, all that's like, that has to be for something. There has to be justice.
It's finally the day of the trial for Carolyn. She and her son Adam are accompanied by Miriam, a support worker with Glasgow and Clyde Rape Crisis.
I don't know what to expect, so I don't know how. I feel, because I could be into a lion's den here.
After more than 2 years, they will both have to face the man they say abused them in court.
You think, am I prepared? But you can't prepare for something like this. You've just got to go and tell the truth. And we just hope the truth prevails. It's my chance to get justice for 3 decades of serious violence against my son and I.
A jury will decide whether Kenneth Quinn is guilty of the 10 charges of domestic violence and rape. These words are taken from the testimony given in the case.
The first time he was violent, I was 4 months pregnant. I just remember him kicking and punching me to the ground. I was begging him not to kick me in the stomach.
Did Kenneth Quinn continue to physically attack you?
Yes, I would beg him when he beat me, please don't hit me in the face. If he hit my arms or body, you could cover those bruises with clothes. But I would beg him not to hit me on the face. I got that I knew how to layer my concealer to cover the bruises. There was a technique to it, which I learned. And he would stand in front of me and I would say to him, is it covered up? And then he would say, no, a wee bit more. So he would be guiding me on how to cover them up. And if I could see the bruises, then I would have to go and wash all the makeup off and go through it again. I was ashamed and degraded by it. It's not something that you want people to see.
Describe life in the house.
Extremely unpleasant most of the time. I honestly can't remember much that was a happy memory. I can't honestly say I had a happy childhood at all.
What caused you to have an unhappy childhood?
Violence, things that I shouldn't have seen.
Who was violent towards who?
My father was violent towards my mum. It was a regular occurrence, the violence. It was at least once a month, and it just progressively got worse. I seen her arm getting broken with the door from my dad pushing the door onto her arm and punching her in the head, and there was a hole in her head, and the blood was just pouring down her face. There was a lot of occasions where it would go as far as my mum going to hospital.
Apart from the fists and feet, did Kenneth Quinn ever strike you with any objects?
Yes.
What objects?
With shoes and dog leads.
Was there an incident when the accused struck you with a bank card?
Yes. I'd asked him to leave and he asked me for his bank card and I gave it to him, and he threw the wallet at me and the bank cards all fell out, and he took one of the bank cards and he held me up against a wall in the hall by the throat with one hand, and with the other hand he slashed both sides of my face. I remember being out with my son and I met a friend in the local shopping centre and she thought I'd been in a road traffic accident.
Was Kenneth Quinn ever violent to you?
Yes. I've been hit, slapped, had my lip burst. I was young, roughly about 11 or 12. My dad had grabbed me and he basically slapped me in the face. That burst my lip and I could taste the blood in my mouth, and grabbed me by the hair, sort of wrestling with me. It was just another sort of outburst of anger from him, and that carried on until I moved out.
As well as being physically assaulted, Carolyn says she was repeatedly raped by her husband.
Was there ever an occasion when Kenneth Quinn had sex with you when you didn't want that to happen?
I was in the lounge. I was begging him to stop. It was worse than the physical violence. It was indescribable. I tried to scream and he covered my mouth. After it, I said, "Do you realise what you've done?"
How many times did that happen?
It happened throughout my marriage. It was usually a Sunday morning. The first time that my ex-husband raped me was when my son was a toddler. I felt totally violated. I told him to stop. On multiple occasions he didn't stop. He didn't stop. I didn't know what to do because my son was a wee toddler in another room and all I kept thinking about was him during it, trying to focus on him. And I just remember the weight of his body because he's quite a big sturdy guy, and it was absolutely horrific. Horrific. Mm-hmm.
Proving rape in court is very difficult. It requires another piece of corroborating evidence. Carolyn's case, the testimony from her son could be the difference between securing a conviction and a not guilty verdict.
Did you ever ask your father if he raped your mother?
I was in the living room of my flat and I asked my dad a straight question, did you do that? I directly asked him, did you rape Mom? And when I asked him that question, he looked at the ground and he said, yes, I did do that. It's in the past. It's not happened again and I know it's messed up. And he just looked at the floor, he was ashamed of himself.
Are you quite clear that he accepted that he had?
Yes.
Yes, that's the truth?
Yes, that's the truth.
A third of all trials at Sheriff Courts are for domestic abuse. And at Dundee Sheriff Court, it's the day of the hearing for Ailsa. The day that James Paul Walton is due to appear. It's 9:30, but there's no sign of Walton. Dundee Assist have been updated on a development overnight.
The police had provided an update to say that the perpetrator was currently in custody. He was arrested last night and charged with additional breaches of bail and kind of further coercive control. So he was kept in custody overnight to appear in court today for those additional offences on top of the ongoing case that we were aware of.
Walton is taken to the court straight from custody and appears in front of the sheriff. Sammy Keith keeps an eye on the online court records. Finally, she can deliver the outcome to Ailsa.
Hello, Sammy.
Hi. Just to give you some really good news, he pled guilty to a number of the charges today.
Wow. I'm in shock that he's actually pled guilty.
How you
Do I not have to go to trial now?
No, that for you, that part is over, so there is no need for you to go. He's pled guilty.
Oh my God, really? I just feel like a whole weight's lifted off my shoulders. Thank you.
You take care and I'll speak to you soon.
I will do. See you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
James Paul Walton is given 200 hours community service and a 2-year non-harassment order, stopping him from approaching or contacting Ailsa and her daughter. He must also inform police of any future relationships.
And now remembering who I was before I met this person, I see a future now. I see a future that even if I do stay single, then at least it'll be a happy one.
It's the third day of Carolyn's trial, and the accused, Kenneth Quinn, is called to give evidence. On the stand, he admits to assaulting his wife and son, but denies using weapons, and he denies the allegations of rape.
Have you ever raped your wife?
Never. Never.
It was said in evidence that you were asked by your son, did you rape my mum?
That conversation didn't take place.
Carolyn Quinn told us that it was a clear memory of hers that when you raped her, it was on a Sunday morning before you went to work. Did that ever happen?
That never happened.
Carolyn Quinn is lying about you repeatedly raping her?
Yes, she's lying. Both my wife and my son are lying.
After 3 days of evidence, the jury is sent out to consider its verdict.
His Majesty advocate against Kenneth Quinn. Please note, this is now a verdict. A verdict in the North Road.
Judge Lady Stacey asks the foreman for their verdict.
On charge 1, how do you find the accused?
Guilty.
On charge 2, how do you find the accused?
Guilty.
On charge 3, how do you find the accused?
Guilty.
Kenneth Quinn is found guilty on all 10 charges. He's taken into custody and will face sentence in 6 weeks' time.
There was no criminal charge of rape in marriage until recently in Scotland. There were no refuges. There were no helplines. Domestic abuse was just a domestic. We have come a very, very long way.
Today, Carolyn is visiting her hairdressers, a place that provided safety and support during her years of domestic abuse.
It's very rare that you'll bring a husband or partner along to a hair appointment with you or a beauty appointment with you. It's your alone and safe kind of space. This is the place where you can, come and spill your guts and have everything out bare in the open, and nobody is going to judge you. Do you remember your first appointment, Carolyn?
No. See that part? I think I've kind of blocked it out.
The thing that rung so strongly in my head when you left with your new funky short bob and your wee funky fringe, and you walked out and you said, he told me I never suited a fringe, and I said,
They did say don't get a
you
fringe.
look amazing. Rock your fringe, and I haven't seen you without a fringe.
No.
That appointment was you walking out and saying, yeah, I've got a fringe now, and me going, good.
That's part of the reason I got it.
That's it, yeah. When you just see the difference, it's just amazing, and you get to see your client's spirit being lifted, and it's like talking to Carolyn, and Karen's like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and it's like, you're doing all these things you never did before, and that's amazing, and like, you should be so proud of yourself. I'm so proud of you, and it's just amazing.
A wider support network is crucial to helping women escape domestic abuse. Today, the charity Jubilee House is running a session giving women the chance to share the issues they're facing.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Fiona McGrath, its founder, set up the charity after she faced domestic abuse.
When women first come to us, they have all sorts of emotions going on. The effects on the women and the children are devastating, obviously. It breaks up family relationships between the non-abusing parent and the child. It completely stints how they live their life.
Shona and Maggie both suffered at the hands of domestic abusers. But after leaving their partners, they're having to navigate difficult childcare issues. Maggie is here with her mum Annette, who is also affected.
Nobody understands the fear you have in you.
For the last 14 years, both women endured the consequences of control and violence by Maggie's ex-husband, Terry Lowe.
My mum's witnessed it. She watched me going through hell. She's watched me leaving him, but having to keep going because I've got 3 kids. I've got more than myself to worry about. And the 3 kids have obviously are upset from it because Dad's not here.
Despite his conviction for violence, Maggie's ex-partner still has access to the children. It's another complicating factor that many face in relationships affected by domestic abuse.
My daughter needs to be able to continue her life with no involvement with the ex-husband. She doesn't want to verbally speak to him. She has absolutely no contact with him whatsoever. Even hearing his voice when he speaks to his children on the iPad sends her into anxiety. She tries to keep calm, but it's that big distance that needs to be made clear and needs to be there from now for the rest of her life.
For Shona, she says her husband used the threat of losing the children to stop her from reporting abuse.
And I went in and I was sitting in a treatment room and the doctor came in to see me and she said, "So how did this happen?" And I had this massive urge to tell her, like, properly how it had happened. And I remembered what he'd said before I left the house. "Remember, I've got the kids here." Because he'd told me that so many times that if I left, he would make sure that I never saw the kids again.
Getting help can be particularly hard for women with black and minority ethnic backgrounds.
My name is Marabella. I'm calling from Shakti Women's Aid.
Shakti Women's Aid is one of only a handful of organisations providing specialist support.
Language barrier is a big issue. On top of that is also understanding of domestic abuse that's experienced by a BME woman. Within her culture, within the family dynamics are different to when it comes to mainstream family dynamics. And therefore, if you don't have the full understanding of what the woman is going through, then your service is going to reflect that, isn't it?
Referrals to Shakti Women's Aid rose by nearly 50% in the past year. Due to a scarcity of funding, the organisation cannot provide a service in certain parts of Scotland. But referrals still come in from all over.
Every day there's two of us that are on telephone duty, and the telephone sometimes can ring constantly. We put them on our waiting list, and our waiting list is getting longer and longer. Originally we tried to do a turnaround every 2 weeks, but now it's 3-4 weeks because the list is very long.
The team supported nearly 1,000 people last year. But it also had to refer many they couldn't help to other agencies.
If you ask actually BME women, some of them actually don't access other services because of fear of racism, discrimination, or not being understood or not being believed. Very few actually report to the police. It's either the neighbor called the police or somebody else called the police. The police go to the incident. As a result of that, the woman then reports. And with our support, and her experience is positive.
In Stirling, it's the day of the trial for Len Penny. She's being allowed to give evidence by video link from a different court to the one in which the trial is being held. 60 miles away in Dundee, the man accused of abusing Len, Gregor Monson, is also at court.
All I want is a non-harassment order, and I am incredibly anxious that that might not happen, and if it doesn't, I am left entirely without any kind of protection.
As Len goes inside with a Women's Aid support worker to give her evidence in Stirling, in Dundee, there's an unexpected development.
He pled guilty to domestic abuse, and that was the best outcome because it meant that I didn't have to recount it all and relive it all. And I'm just very, very, very relieved that it's finally over.
Three months later, Gregor Monson returns to Dundee Sheriff Court for sentence. He's told he must undergo a rehabilitation programme for domestic abusers. Monson is also given a non-harassment order, preventing any contact with Len for 3 years. Today, Carolyn will see her husband sentenced for the decades of violence she suffered. 2.5 years after she first reported the abuse.
How are you feeling?
Relieved that it's coming to an end. It's been a long, arduous journey and just a bit nervous. We've been through so much. We just want it to end at this point. I'm expecting him to be sentenced accordingly for the depravity of the crimes and the effects on my son and I, both physically and mentally. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mr. Quinn, will you please stand up? You have been convicted by the jury of all the charges on the indictment. The charges are very serious. They show a long course of conduct in which you were violent to your wife over a period of many years. During those 27 years, you kicked her, you pulled her hair, you kicked her downstairs, you punched her, you hit her with a dog lead and with shoes. You assaulted her when she was pregnant. You also raped her. You forced her to have sexual intercourse with you by violence. Not only did your son suffer violence on several occasions himself, but he also saw his mother covered in blood after you assaulted her. You ruined your son's childhood. That behaviour, Mr. Quinn, is disgraceful. The only appropriate sentence is a lengthy period of imprisonment to mark the seriousness of the harm that you have caused and to mark society's disapproval of it. The sentence I impose is one of 15 years imprisonment.
I say to other people, please come forward, please don't suffer in silence. I've been there and I know what it's like and it's horrific. When you leave them, you know there's a difficult journey in front, but the outcome at the end's worth it. It's worth it. I'm free. I'm free. I was in utter hell for years. At one point I thought I was drowning. But I'm not. I'm here and I'm standing.